Please back in.
Is that any proof to come back in?
Do we have to?
Yes.
Yes.
Come on down. Behind this door. Peter's a good friend.
I know.
Can I ask each one of you to do something? Just go out to CT Gun Rights and read the homepage. ctgunrights.com, read the homepage.
CP or CD?
CT Gun
CT,
Rights.
okay.
On the record?
That's Rich Burgess's site.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Are they coming?
Yeah, I guess they are.
Okay.
No, I was asking Sergeant D'Alessandro
The reason,
if intoxication and carrying on your own property or in your own house.
whatever.
Statute doesn't
We're
distinguish.
back on the record.
I've asked that the following item be put on the agenda for discussion by us. I don't know that we'll take a position, but I've drafted a position. Is this the current one? You printed out the first one.
No, this is the one.
Yeah,
Forget the other, forget the other. This is the one about should we take a position on
Yeah.
public safety with regard to.
Right.
That's the same one you sent?
Yeah, but I sent you two versions, didn't I?
Oh. No, that
No,
was
no,
the other one.
oh,
The
oh,
other
right,
one, you
right.
sent me two versions.
Right.
I'm not discussing that one.
All right.
Just-
I've heard a number of people talking about trying to take away the confidentiality of people who have been issued pistol permits. Looking at it from the standpoint of public safety, which is the board's primary mission in assessing suitability of people, I think it's problematic because, putting on my prosecutor hat for a minute, I don't think we gain anything by way of public safety by letting people know who has pistol permits. Just the general inquiring public. I don't think we gain anything in the way of public safety with that. But what we do is we come up with a list of potential burglary targets. People who are not home, they're at work during the day, and somebody's going to go in and take their firearm. And I can tell you, in State against DeMayo, which was a capital case, 2 wonderful people were murdered in the business by a guy who also murdered a guy in Long Island. He was going around robbing jewelry stores, and he killed 3 people. And he got the gun by breaking into a house in Greenwich. It stole the firearm from a person who was, completely innocent, properly stored, given the context of the family. There was no children, there weren't anything there. It was in the house, and the guy stole the weapon from there, and he went on to use it to rob a number of jewelry stores and murder 3 people. And so I'm really concerned about the idea that we might, and I know also from my prosecutor experiences, that a lot of people who are involved with crime are internet savvy. They are posting on Facebook, they're collecting information about potential witnesses and all this kind of stuff. They certainly will be able to, even if the state doesn't put pistol permits online, somebody will come along, ask for an FOIA, and post them someplace, just like they did in New York. And I think what we're doing is we're really setting up an opportunity for guns to fall into the hands of the wrong people if the legislature does take a position on this. One of the issues that you see very often is the concept of the straw man. A bad guy wants a gun, he sends a straw man in who's clean to make a purchase, and then he turns the gun over to the bad guy. And whether he says later on that he lost it, or it was stolen, or whatever, the gun has made its way into the hands of a bad guy. Another capital case, State against Russell Peeler. Russell Peeler was getting guns from a guy who was a legal purchaser, who had never been arrested before, but who had a drug addiction, and he would go, he would buy guns, and then he would give guns and money in exchange for crack cocaine. And so the Peeler's arsenal, and perhaps, and probably in all likelihood, the pistol, actually the revolver that took the life of Karen Clark and 7-year-old B.J. Brown, came from a transaction like that, from basically a straw purchaser. Well, in a sense, that helped lead us back to Russell, and he's on death row right now. If you're stealing guns from an innocent person's house, you don't have some associate who can link you to the purchase of the firearm if you go out and you use it in a crime. It's an absolutely clean gun from the standpoint of a criminal. And so I think it's, I mean, I realize that people want to know, oh, does my neighbor have firearms in the house before I send my kid over there? Well, that's not going to be done by making those things public. That's,
Yeah, they should call up and ask him.
yeah, you come up and you ask them, you know, if your children are playing at a neighbor's house, you should know about the people who your children are over there. So I don't see any law enforcement denying.
Yeah.
The police, the mental health agencies, they all have access to who has a pistol permit right now. I think all we're doing is creating a situation where we might actually put more guns into the hands of people who shouldn't have them. I have prepared for you the draft statement that Chief Knapp has circulated. If the board wants to take a position on this, I mean, maybe we shouldn't, but I think that, you know, we see cases in here. We had the case out of Meriden a few months ago. The guy, an older guy, he had a lady friend whose daughter was over the house, knew the guy had a gun in the house. The guy himself had no small children in the house. She tells the low-life boyfriend goes over, steals the guy's gun. And the only way I think we found out, I think it was a snitch to the Meriden cops. I think that's how they found out.
Yeah.
Right? That happened because the girl acquired knowledge of the fact that the guy had a firearm in the house and told the bad guy. Well, can you imagine if all the guy had to do was go on the internet and find it? And we see that happen here. And we know what the consequences of these things can be. So if we want to take a position on this, I've prepared something. I don't know if we do want to. I don't know if our taking a position helps or hinders the legislature in coming to a good policy decision. But anyway, I put this out here for your consideration.
I think aside from, it's not a good idea to let the public know where people do have guns, it's also not a good idea to let people know where people don't have guns.
Or at least handguns.
Yeah.
It's an invasion of privacy.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about that.
I would
Making it safe for the burglar.
I think if the board were taking a position on this, I think that the bill's thought on this is not as persuasive, I think, to other people, because a lot of people think, well, guns are scary and guns are bad, and therefore, it's better to have everybody know. That's sort of the negative, okay, here's a safe house to break into, because it doesn't necessarily follow that all people will use guns appropriately when the burglar comes, or will know what to do, or, you know. And then the invasion of privacy aspect of it too, I think is, well, I'm sympathetic to that argument. I think that's not necessarily an argument that wins in all
No,
quarters.
it doesn't. But you know what it does, Joe, as well?
So-
It allows political pressure to be put on certain people.
Well, I'm not interested in the board engaging in
We're not
political
going
pressure.
to,
I think we
but
need
that's
to
the
take-
reality of it, because
Right.
what is the purpose of the legislation?
But the board should be taking, if we take a position, and I'm not entirely convinced that we need to take, or we should take a position, but it is something that's troubling me from the standpoint of public safety. And that's our mission as the board. In our own individual capacity, we can advocate for any position, but I think that as part of the comprehensive firearms regulation system, state police, local issuing authority, us, we do have an interest in this on the level that I've talked about. So.
And the level that you talked about is relevant to what we do. The privacy issues would be perhaps relevant to the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities or something like that. That's why we don't, in my opinion, we don't need to get there.
Right, I would think we.
But as far as what we do and what our charge is, I would support doing this, and
Yeah.
and I've reviewed the language, and I think it's,
I'd ask you,
It's
all of you to
appropriate.
take a look at the draft language.
I read the language, I would think, if we decide to adopt this and send it to the Public Safety Committee, I'd like to see 2 paragraphs with a yellow highlight though, because it's really gorgeous.
Yeah, right.
I haven't had a chance to read
The
it.
3rd paragraph from the bottom on page 2, in the last paragraph. That's basically a statement of position. The other is supportive information.
well, perhaps instead of yellow highlight, it could just be bolded. And that
Okay.
way, if it's recopied or in some way,
Yeah, okay.
you know, you don't get into a problem. I would have no
Are you talking about
problem.
where it says release of this information to the public?
Yes, and then the bottom.
Okay.
Starting with some.
I want to be heard.
I'm
Just
just
on a
listening.
procedural matter,
I
I
just-
don't know
well,
how
just
the
listening.
board falls within the Office of Governmental Accountability. I don't
Yeah.
know where, I don't know how we work.
Only for administrative purposes.
Because I know how, I'm just going by how our department, DEP, or other state agencies, either support or weigh in on other bills. There's a very specific methodology when you do that. There's very specific forms that, and how the testimony is supposed to be laid out
Yeah.
for it to be relevant and to be heard and for it to make it to, for the committees to even acknowledge it.
Right.
So I don't know how we need to do that.
This kind of tracks the format that the chief.
Doesn't look like anything like,
Mhm.
there's very specific forms for testimony.
But you could, let's just say that this bill per se is gonna have a public hearing. This document could be submitted on behalf of the board without somebody going.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Or
yes.
Joe, as our representative, could go and just read this within 3 minutes into the record. So I think that's our only intent here,
Yeah.
correct?
Oh, I know, but I mean, as part of
Yeah.
the office or the
Yeah,
government.
usually, well, there's no bill right now, so that's how come, usually the
Yeah,
format
I'm sure
says.
there will be one by
Yeah.
No,
now.
there's a proposed bill.
There is,
Yes, there is.
Representative Dargan.
there's, usually in the format it says, I'm here today to speak with respect to. and then-
Yeah, there's all the format,
Right.
and I can send you the current
Yeah.
12-hour templates if you want.
Yeah, if you would, yeah.
When
The,
Please take
when
a
do they
position,
plan on
Paul.
having public
Sorry.
comment on this?
is the state police taking a position at all?
No,
You know?
I don't know. What,
You know?
The committee
I
hasn't
don't
even
believe
addressed
it's
it.
not gonna be an issue that's gonna be a problem.
I think it's dead.
It should be taken either way, Barbara.
Can I need
That can be
this
taken
FOI,
either way.
I need to say
what is the
something.
public
I
comment?
don't
They
think it's
usually
gonna
don't
be an
release
issue.
it till 3 days before.
You just don't die, it's gonna be.
It's just gonna be dead.
It's not, there's no traction.
I wish he had bragged about our
Yeah,
law
I
instead
don't
of
think it'll be anything you're gonna have
introducing
to worry
the bill.
about.
But I think procedurally, because usually the timing on a public hearing is so tight, I usually hear about stuff like 2 or 3 days before. This way, if we approve
That we
this,
have something we can send.
absolutely.
My
Yeah.
my testimony had to be done for certain bills 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and ready to go,
Right.
literally. Well, you know, like probably, I think my date on certain bills that we were proposing and weighing in on was like December 8th.
But those were your proposals, yeah, those were the department's proposals, right, those were
It's
your.
not a response to somebody else.
Not yet.
I was-
Yes.
What happens, how do you have to approve to respond to somebody else?
before you.
Yes.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
So you, just we're for administrative purposes. When I was supposed for administrative purposes, don't have that.
Oh, it's on
That's what it does.
I
there.
We'll weigh
It's
in.
on there.
I was on the legislature's website last night looking at 3 particular gun-related bills, and the actual text is not there, they're like placeholders.
Right, there's.
So we don't even
bills,
know
yeah.
what's being proposed at
Right.
this time to comment on. We know
Right.
with regard to this, generally what is proposed, but there
Right.
could be exemptions to it which would make this irrelevant.
Right.
I'll
Right,
tell you
but I
one
wanted
thing,
to- I wanted to-
procedurally, they always put in an occasional dummy bill in every department, so that after the deadline, if somebody comes up with an idea, there's already a bill that they can.
Oh, no,
vote
these
on.
were pretty specific,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there's a specific placeholder for the assault weapon situation and this situation. And there was one other ones that I was just looking at, they're pretty specific.
Tax on animal maybe.
That was in a
Right.
general.
And I
category.
think that most of that stuff is really outside our lane. But I wanted to get a sense from all of you as to, first of all, whether we should say, be prepared to say anything, and if we do, what we should say. And,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we take an issue, a stand on this issue, as you suggest.
Okay.
And adopt this.
Is there a second?
To be, yeah, I'll second it, but adopting this,
Yeah,
but.
well, let's do it one at a time. Let's do the first that we're gonna take a position, and then we'll vote on this document.
You made your motion.
Okay, discussion. Should we take?
There's no
a
second to
position?
the motion yet.
Was there a second?
No.
I'll second the motion.
No.
Okay, discussion. Should we take a position on the question of confidentiality? If it's a non-starter, if it's not getting anywhere, why should we jump in and call attention to the board and bring us under scrutiny?
How do you know that until they take it off the table
We-
or?
Joe,
Or
we
vote
take,
on
we take a position as the board, and then if it does come to fruition, we have it ready, we send it in. If it does not come to fruition, we still have a position, and we sit on it.
Yeah, I would be supportive of adopting, not only having a position, but adopting this language directing Sue to hold it until she hears from the chairman to employ it. I think.
Yeah, we would put it into the
It's
proper template.
FOIable. If we adopt it, it's FOIable.
So let somebody FOI it, but,
Okay.
you know, I mean.
Why would we wanna hide it?
Yeah,
I didn't suggest hiding it.
I think it's FOIable now.
No, it's a draft. It's a draft.
Okay, can I just
It's
ask
a
a
draft,
question
and
here?
it's a draft, and we've already
Mr. Cook
amended it.
made a motion and Mr. Fishbein seconded, but to take a position on this
On
or
this
a
issue.
separate
Take a position on
To take a position on the issue,
issue?
not on the text.
The issue of confidentiality.
A pistol
I
permit.
just wanna make sure I get the minutes
Yeah.
right.
And that way, you know, once we vote on that and accept that,
And
then we
actually-
go on, otherwise,
Actually, we don't need to produce a document if we have a consensus on what our position is, and then either myself or Bill or Craig or any of the gentlemen who would go and speak on behalf of the board could go up and offer testimony. But
I would only feel comfortable, with all due respect to everybody, if we agreed upon what that testimony was. Not that I don't trust anybody
Yeah.
here, but I think as a cohesive team,
but we aren't to that point until we vote on the issue of taking a position.
I understand.
So we need to take a vote on that first, before we look at this document.
Okay, now, does anybody else want to discuss? I call the question.
Yeah, so, wait,
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask you, on the overall, there's no draft language to even take a position against.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's-
just that
that's the
we're
only-
going to take
You say
a
take
position
against,
and
so take a
authorize it.
On what?
On the proposal to,
What proposal? I'm just saying, I'm having a hard time if you don't have.
right,
Yeah.
right,
That's the only
we don't
thing.
know, we don't know what we're addressing.
We can take a position on a concept,
Mhm.
which is maintaining the confidentiality of pistol permit
That's
holders.
what the motion is.
Right, because in fact,
Okay.
That's a concept, there's no.
It's a concept. Because this is the actual, and we're not voting on that yet until we discuss it. But we're gonna get on the record that we are going to do this,
Or not.
or not.
There's no draft, there's no proposed bill to, you know.
No,
there's
it's about
definitely-
a policy, it's not about a specific bill,
it's about a
to
concept.
get us all on the same page.
right,
Well, it's either about a concept or leaving the language in the statute as is.
Mhm.
Maybe that would be a way. to
Yeah,
go
but-
about it.
Right, I mean, I approached it by saying that the board is aware that the General Assembly may consider changing this law, and I cite that, and releasing the names and addresses to the general public. The board opposes this on public safety grounds. That's the essence of this.
Is there anybody at this table who believes that we should be allowing the names of all pistol permit holders out in the public to be published in the newspaper?
Peter, I haven't come to a final view on this, but frankly, I don't give a damn whether people know I have a pistol permit or not. And I would like to know which of my neighbors have got guys who are drunks, who are drugs, who are crazy, who've got nutty wives. That's 80% of the population
But
that don't
that's-
have pistol permits, more than that.
Yeah, but that's the part of the problem.
But I
yeah,
live,
but
I
there's been
live,
some
I live,
cases illustrated out there where like women who've been victim of stalkers
Yeah,
and are hiding for
From their
domestic
husbands,
violence
ex-husbands.
purposes, but they don't want the fact known that they got another pistol permit.
I have not made up my mind finally about this, but I don't think it's a slam dunk. I do take your point about, Joe, about people stealing permits. I think one of them, I don't know how many people actually keep their firearms locked up.
they don't have to.
I know they don't have to, Peter, but.
And I know you're gonna
because-
ask people whether they keep them locked up.
No, but I tell you, if somebody's worried about somebody breaking in when they're not there and stealing their guns, maybe they'll lock the damn things up.
But that's not this issue. That issue is on,
But we're
Us
talking,
right
we're
now.
talking about public safety. I said, I haven't come to a final view on this,
we're
but I don't think it's a slam dunk.
we're
I
talking
think-
about whether we're gonna take a position.
Well, I'm suggesting we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Maybe, I think maybe,
I think the question was called, and I think under Robert's rules,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
yeah, there has to be a
I'll
The
second.
motion for the
the
previous
following
question requires a second, it's a non-debatable motion. Okay. The question before, the question,
One
yeah,
second.
Craig just seconded.
Craig seconded it.
The question before the board is whether or not we should take a position
Period.
on the
Yeah.
issue, the potential issue in the General Assembly of changing the law with respect to the confidentiality of pistol
I
permits.
don't think it was that word, it just was on the confidentiality.
Well, that's good
Um,
enough.
okay.
If Joe likes that one. that's-
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Fishbein, Mr. Greer,
No.
Chief Knapp,
Yeah,
Mr. Trevanigan,
I'm on the fence.
Colonel,
he abstains, you know, can't.
Yes.
okay, the chair votes yes. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes on that.
6 yeas, 1 nay. Okay. To the extent that we do take a position, what position should we take?
I would offer the chairman's draft document for a model draft to be considered for the board's position, for discussion, adoption, or modification.
I agree that the bill that it is somewhat wordy, but I think it's intentionally so.
We could just take the position that the current language in the statute became unchanged, and then put this into the testimonial category.
I think it's hard to draft testimony until we see how the bill.
Yeah, you know what,
I have an
right.
issue with that.
This is,
You're right.
but this is generally, this language, the way I read it, is generally addressing the concept.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I would make a motion that we adopt this language with the revision suggested by Chief Knapp to be held by Sue Mazzacoli until given the go by the chairman.
What was the chief's,
I wouldn't want to use, as long as we are not committing ourselves to or just in case there's something in the language of the bill that no one addressing here.
Subject to possible revision.
Yeah.
I'd like to make, know.
And I think that was the motion that I put up, and that we use it as a model subject to revision.
And Chief Knapp suggested modifications were to highlight, and I suggested bolding, on page 2, the paragraph that begins release, and the final paragraph.
I've seen this thing for the first time about 20 minutes ago. I have not had a chance to study it. Passing what I read, though,
Yeah.
It is about
Me too, it's a little over 2 pages, and I'd like to see it down to like 1 page.
you can't say it in a paragraph and a half, you probably should say it.
And I like the last 3 paragraphs of page 2. And the second paragraph of page 1.
But are we all agreed that we can use it as a draft, a
Yes.
working draft?
Yeah.
Okay, then the
Okay
other,
for modification.
I would suggest we table the matter to the next board meeting, because the landscape may be a little cleaner at that point.
Well, you know, everybody's got a copy of it, and, yeah. but-
It's a draft, so it's not gonna be a lot,
Take it.
but it's not saying token.
It's
You
a
won't be
draft.
here for the next meeting, John.
It might be, if we're not picking a jury.
Table it for 2 weeks, and we'll see,
Is there a second to the motion to table?
Second.
Okay, is there any objection to making a unanimous vote?
Mr. Chairman, I would table it for reconsideration at our next meeting. I would like
Right,
that
well, as long as it's tabled, it can be taken from the table at any time.
Any-
But Susan can put that on the
agenda.
agenda. It could be old business.
I'll second it.
It's already seconded.
Where are the
All right,
legislators?
there's no objection, Mr. Water.
No. The idea
You would like to address the board?
is
Based on
to
this
take-
I haven't put the agenda.
Based on what?
Based on the addition to the agenda, what you
There's
just
no
did.
addition.
There was no
That's what,
addition.
you know what I'm saying.
It's on the agenda.
I'd like to
Dargan has
address
questions
the board.
about it.
Yeah, you're the one to throw it out there.
Sure, I'll give you a minute, Mr. Fruita.
It's not
Bruce,
official
we
land
give it a
for
minute.
something else.
Exactly.
That's all.
I've been watching the board now
Or something
since
which can be
2007.
replaced with other
Figure.
language.
We're hearing public comment.
I believe that there are 7 people in the state of Connecticut, and I include everybody on the board, who have an intricate knowledge in why people can't get permits, why people get permits back. You 7 people, more than anybody in the state legislature, other than probably the SLFU that deals with seeing it come in every day and have to type it into their records as to what happened and reading reports. You're probably the 7 most knowledgeable people about what's going on with firearms in the state of Connecticut, at least handguns. I think that you need to take a position. There's an argument going to be heard in the appellate court on an appeal that I brought over whether or not the names of applicants are disclosable when they are delayed in getting their background checks. The argument that was made was, no, that eviscerates the privacy. Well, the privacy, according to the statute, doesn't attach until the valid permit is issued. So the applicants' names are disclosable, in my opinion, until the valid permit is issued. Maybe the board needs to take the position of, from the application through a denial, or from the application through the issuance of a permit, the confidentiality attaches, or doesn't attach. But I just want to tell you that this board has changed since 2007, since the frequently asked questions that were published on your website came off in September of 2007. People are still calling into WTIC radio and telling Jim Weisvich, you can't carry your firearm into a bar. Yeah, you can. You just can't be intoxicated or impaired when you do it. And there's a lot of bad information out there, and you people are the 7 people who deal with it on a monthly basis. And I think that you need to be intricately involved in the current legislative proposals, not just the privacy issue. You see it. You saw it today, alcohol. You've seen psychological. You've seen criminal. You've seen criminal without charges. I've been here when somebody had somebody and was asked the same question that they were asked today. Why didn't you arrest him for possession of a firearm while intoxicated? Well, I didn't know about the law. And that was a police officer saying that. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that aren't being used by executive, which includes law enforcement, judicial, which turns people that steal firearms in East Windsor out on 2 years probation only to have them go back in to do it again. So you've got the 3 branches of government, and you're going to have a bunch of, and I'll call them bozos, sitting up there on a public safety committee that are knee-jerk reaction to Newtown, but have no idea about how all of the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And you're probably right now, and I'll give credit to the state police that's in this room, you're the most knowledgeable people about firearms in the state of Connecticut right now, at least handguns. You know more about hunting than anybody probably on the board because you deal with it on a daily basis, Colonel. But, and I don't mind telling you, I got an FOI fulfilled today. The DEEP gave me 49,947 names of people who have hunting permits. And hunting permits are long guns. Hunting permits are weapons in the house. They gave me the first name, the middle initial, last name, street address, town, zip code, and if they have an email address, they gave me that too.
I hope you don't intend to post it.
I don't intend to publish it. I don't intend to publish it. But I've drawn, now I'm saying, why hide the pistol permits when everybody's M1s, M14s, 03 Springfields, Henry repeating rifles, and probably Bushmasters are sitting in their homes because they're long guns. There's a problem. And I would hope that you get involved in the firearms issues that are going to come up in the 2013 legislature beyond just, I'm surprised somebody from this board wasn't appointed to the commission.
You're here.
Because you guys know.
That shows how serious they are about
I'm
this,
surprised.
or not.
One of you guys wasn't,
They're doing it for
public
public,
safety,
not for public safety.
Contractually.
you know? Huh?
But I had a similar situation. I did an FOI request upon DPS.
The business of the board being over, I make a
incident
motion
report.
we adjourn.
Wait,
Is there any other business coming before the board?
just one comment. OGA, all the executive heads, everybody met with Office of Fiscal Analysis. We have a new Office of Fiscal Analysis person assigned to us who's also assigned to the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. He's a new guy, Grant. I don't know his last name. Anyways,